program is the Active Center.
For decades, Cesar Chavez was an American icon. I mean, he was practically a secular saint of the labor movement. But in 2026, his legacy didn't just get tarnished, it was absolutely shattered almost overnight. So today, we're going to dive into the source material that calls this a modern-day ideological liquidation.
Just try to imagine this for a second. In the span of just a few weeks, a name that's on schools, parks, and even stamps all across the country suddenly becomes toxic. That is exactly what happened here. The speed and the finality of it all was just stunning, which, it really begs the question, what was really going on?
The source we're examining gives this whole thing a name, and it's a deliberately provocative one: ideological liquidation. It suggests this wasn't just a simple fall from grace, not at all. It was something more systematic, something that felt more like a political purge. Okay, so let's break this down. According to the source, this term describes a kind of modern playbook where the accusation itself becomes the final verdict. Historical context? Yeah, that gets thrown right out the window. And procedural fairness is seen as, well, just an obstacle. It's all done in the name of ideological purity. So this is the lens we're going to use to understand the events of 2016.
So what lit the match? I mean, while there were these tensions simmering for a long time, it was a series of truly harrowing allegations that acted as the immediate catalyst, the thing that brought his entire legacy crashing down.
Now, what's really incredible about this slide is just the sheer velocity. I mean, look at this timeline. In early March, a bombshell allegation drops. By late March, his own union disavows him, and by April, public celebrations are just wiped off the calendar. It was a complete institutional collapse in a matter of weeks. Just unbelievable.
And the allegations themselves were devastating. Dolores Huerta, his longtime partner in the movement, comes forward at 95 years old with these claims of sexual assault. And that just opened the floodgates. Other women came forward, detailing a pattern of alleged abuse that went on for decades. This was the moral crisis that made his position completely indefensible.
But to really understand the speed of the collapse, the source argues we have to look past the scandal itself. We have to look at a 50-year ideological civil war that was basically just waiting for a moment exactly like this one.
And this quote, wow, this gets right to the heart of that conflict. Spoken by Chavez himself, it is, by today's standards, absolutely radioactive. It reveals a worldview that put his labor union above everything else, and in doing so, created this deep and lasting resentment among other activists.
So, the crucial point here is that there were two fundamentally opposed ideas at play. You had Chavez and the UFW, who saw undocumented workers as a threat to their union's power. They were scabs, strikebreakers, plain and simple. But then you had more radical groups who saw them as brothers and sisters in a bigger struggle for ethnic solidarity, for La Raza. And these two visions, they just could not coexist.
And Chavez's actions absolutely backed up his words. He didn't just talk, he organized campaigns to report undocumented workers. He created a civilian border patrol known as the Wet Line, which was accused of violence. He supported laws that would punish employers for hiring the undocumented, and just shrugged off criticism about his use of slurs. To his opponents, this was a profound betrayal.
But here's where it gets really complicated. A crucial twist the source points out. Dolores Huerta, the very same person whose testimony would later trigger his downfall, was originally a key architect of this strategy. For years, she was actively lobbying against undocumented labor, arguing it hurt the union. This really complicates the narrative, right? It shows you just how mainstream these views once were, even within the UFW leadership.
And this brings us to the central tension of Chavez himself. He wasn't just one thing. His legacy is a study in contradictions, a hero to so many and a villain to many others, often for very different reasons.
I mean, on one side, you have these undeniable victories. He got the first ever union contracts for farm workers, won landmark legislation, and ended the use of a truly torturous tool. Yet, on the other side, you have the illegals campaign and the Wet Line. He was both a champion of the worker and, in the eyes of his critics, an enforcer of the border.
So let's get back to the source's central idea. How exactly did this long-simmering ideological conflict, when you combine it with a moral scandal, lead to such a rapid liquidation? Well, the source lays out a kind of playbook.
According to the source, it works something like this. First, the accusation acts as the final verdict, not the start of some inquiry. Second, historical context, like, the 1970s labor economics that drove his decisions, is just completely ignored. Third, ideological purity becomes the only standard that matters. And finally, any kind of appeal to due process is just dismissed as a tactic to slow down justice.
To make its point, the source draws some pretty stark historical parallels. It likens the logic to Stalin's idea that your internal enemies become more dangerous over time, or to Mao's public struggle sessions, which are now kind of mirrored in digital denunciations, and of course to Trotsky being literally airbrushed from Soviet photos, an indispensable figure just erased for ideological impurity.
So what does this all add up to? Well, in this final section, we're going to look at the source's main conclusion from this rapid, total erasure of a historical giant.
The final argument from the source is basically this. The horrific abuse allegations became the lever that allowed Chavez's long-standing political enemies to finally win their 50-year ideological war. And in this view, a complex, flawed history was sacrificed at the altar of modern ideological purity.
And that leaves us with the central question that this whole episode presents. What do we do with figures like this? When a hero's great achievements are just inseparable from actions we now find completely abhorrent, how do we, and how should we, judge their place in history? That's the complex dilemma at the very heart of this story.
Hello, and thanks for listening. This is David Sepp and the Active Center team. For years, our mission has been to foster a community around engagement, health, and conversation. If you value what we do, please consider supporting us. We've started a GoFundMe to cover our production and operational costs, including those pesky social media fees. Your contribution, big or small, helps us keep going. Thank you.